Hey guys, I am Game Advisor and welcome to another Starbase video. Today we're going to be talking about thrusters and everything you need to know in order to get started with them. Do keep in mind this is a big topic, so some things might be covered in the flight control section or the cockpit section, whatever we decide to title it, which will be our next video to come out after this one. Either way, thank you so much for watching and let's go ahead and jump into it. So to start off, what we're going to need is obviously some thrusters. I've already got some pre-made ones here for us, but either way, we'll go into them real quick. So first up, let's talk about how you actually build a thruster. For this example, we're going to be using the Box 1T1 thruster. So this is just the box that it's going to hold it in. Then you're going to take the box thruster nozzle tier 1 and slap that onto the back of the ship like so. Then we're going to go ahead and grab ourselves a thruster propellant converter tier 1. These are the purple ones. They're going to go right in here. Easy peasy. They should snap right in once you get it right. But first, we're going to need to go ahead and get our actual combustion chamber. So to get our combustion chamber, let's go ahead and grab our thruster electricity converter first. So now we have the converter and we have the propellant. Now let's go ahead and get our combustion chamber. So for this one, we want the box thruster combustion chamber. This is just going to slide right on into the box. Very simple. Then we're going to go ahead and grab all the other stuff that we've already pulled out and hook those into it. And we're going to grab this one as well. And ta-da, we did it. Good job, guys. We built a Box 1T1 thruster. Now that we have this design, we're going to go ahead and quickly just auto bolt this together with the tool we have down here. We're going to select it. Now we need to figure out where we want to put it on our ship. So for my case, we want to make sure that this is where it's going to be attaching, or this. These are the only parts of the thruster that have to be attached to your ship, and they have to be attached via a hard point. So let's go ahead and pull ourselves out a hard point real quick. And again, for this one, we're going to be using the device hard point. You can use the large hard point. Just keep in mind, these can be connected via beams on the sides, these large ones, where these have to be bolted directly into the beam. So because this is just a very simple ship, we're going to go ahead and just do one, and we're going to put it right here on the roof. We're going to rotate it down, and we're going to put it just like this. Make sure it's nice and even. There we go. Now, do keep in mind, with these small device thrusters, you need to have a minimum of 4 bolts into the thruster, otherwise it will not work. So that's extremely important to remember whenever you're doing this. So now that we have our little hard point in here, we're going to go ahead and hook it up with our cabling. So again, we've already talked about this in a previous video. You're just going to grab a cable anywhere from the network. We're going to grab one from up here because it's the easiest one to get to. Run it along here and connect it in. We're going to do the same thing with the pipe, because we're going to need to be able to put propellant into it. Again, these can go into the same one if you want them to. It really doesn't matter. As long as they're connected, that's all that matters at the end of the day, is they're into the same system. So now we've got that hooked up. Let's go ahead and grab ourselves our box thruster. Now again, we need to make sure this blue square right here is perfectly lined up. Now in order to do this, we need to also make sure that absolutely no blue is showing on it once it's connected. If any blue is showing, we have not hooked it up properly. So let's go ahead and see if we can get this to work for us. And boom, there we go. So as you can see, there's none of that blue outline from that square after we've hooked it in. I've also managed to not grab the rest of the thruster on accident because I did not select it all. I ended up only selecting the box. So just be aware, unless you make it a module, that is something that can happen. Now what I've done for you guys is I've gone ahead and put on a second box thruster here so that we already have 2 and we have equal thrust on the top and the bottom of our ship. Do keep in mind that whenever you are doing this, that you do need to think about your thrust center of mass. So if you don't know how to see that, you can click this right here and you'll see a little blue square pop up. However, you do need a seat and you need flight controls in order for it to register it. You can see your regular center of mass, but it's just not as useful. Now, something that we also want to know is that usually thrusters need to be bolted into something as well. So as you can see here, we don't actually have the thrusters bolted into anything but the hard point. And theoretically that can work, but it is usually not the wisest way to go. So what are we going to do about that? We're going to go over here. We're going to grab a plate. Let's just say this one right here because it's small and simple and easy to use. And we're going to just slide it. You know, let's actually get a big one here. So going to get this one right here. I'm going to put it right there. Go ahead and bolt it down. And then we're going to go ahead and select this thruster, and we're going to bolt this down as well. There we go. Now the thruster is actually bolted into something. If it's not working for you, just know you may need more plates in different areas if you're getting an integrity error with this thing. So it's something to keep in mind. It's not always necessary, but it is a nice thing to have, and usually you're going to want it the bigger your ship gets. So again, we're just going to bolt this down a bit, make sure it's nice and good. Give this thing a couple of bolts. I could auto bolt it if I wanted to, but I personally prefer to put in my bolts manually. And this isn't perfectly aligned either. This is just a quick throw together ship. Do keep in mind on your own ship, you do want to keep everything as perfectly aligned as possible. Okay, so now that we have our thrusters actually functional here, we're going to talk about how to do our maneuver thrusters. Now, if you don't know, maneuver thrusters are essentially just going to be little tiny ones that allow you to move things on your ship. Now, there's two ways to do this. I'm going to show you guys both. It's really pretty much the same thing here, but I always like to go with the corner maneuver thrusters if I can, as corner maneuver thrusters just give you a little bit more ease of access and accuracy when you're using them. They are a bit big and bulky, so if you don't want them for your ship, it's perfectly fine. You do not have to use these. This is just my preference. So the only way I can really explain this to you guys is you have to think of your ship as if it were an actual spaceship for a second. Now, in an actual spaceship in space, you're going to need thrusters on each corner of your ship in order to make it function. So just to give you an example here, I'm going to go ahead and build that for you so you can see what that might look like. And this is going to be the bare minimum you would need in order to properly maneuver in space. Obviously, more is better, but this is just to get you up and get you running. Okay, so as you can see, I've gone ahead and set up each of the four corners that we want here on both the top and bottom of the ship. Now, this is going to give us the most basic of maneuvering capabilities. If you do want a reverse, you're going to have to put thrusters on the front. These can be large thrusters as well, so if you're building a larger ship, you can use large thrusters to point in different directions rather than these small maneuver ones. But for the sake of this ship being so small, we're only going to stick to the little tiny maneuver ones. So what we're going to do here is now that we have these down, we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab ourselves some maneuver thrusters. Again, for the sake of this video, we're just using the tier 1 ones, but they all hook up the same. So you should see it snap into place, and that's what you're looking for here. You want to make sure all these little thrusters snap just right into place. So let's go ahead and run around the ship and knock that out. Alrighty, so now that we have all our maneuver thrusters, one thing we always want to keep in mind with these is that we do want to make sure everything is bolted properly to our ship. And the way we can tell these things are not bolted properly, just at a quick glance, is going to be these little pink squares I have from the center of mass tool. So if you're wondering if something's not bolted or it's not properly connected to the ship or it considers itself independent of the ship, that's what you're going to be looking for. There is other ways to do this. This is just how I like to do it while I'm building so that I know if something at a quick glance is properly done. Now, for your cabling on these corner thrusters, you'll notice that it kind of has this like arch to it. You do not actually need to cable the whole thing. You just need one electrical cable and one pipe for each one. That's it. It's not complex whatsoever. So whenever you need to do that, that's all you're going to have to do. It's one regular cable, one pipe. You should be good to go as long as it's hooked into wherever your propellant and your generators are for your ship. Alrighty, so now that that's done, I'm just going to cover some stuff really quick for you guys. For these large hard points, if you did want to use them, all you need to do is pop open your beam structures. Let's go ahead and just grab a simple one here. We're going to use the 192. for the sake of just showing it off, and you can slap these on just like this and it will work. You can bolt in from the side on these large ones. However, on the smaller ones, I have not been able to get this to work yet. So just keep that in mind whenever you're building these. If you're using the large hardpoints, you're going to have to get still your 4 bolts, and you can do them on the sides, but for your small device hardpoints like these regular thrusters use, then you cannot do that. And you can swap these out. So if you did want a large one there, I could do that. That is an option. Now for more maneuver thruster stuff, let's say we wanted a maneuver thruster, but we didn't want like a top and a bottom one, and we wanted to just put it on the front to slow down the ship. Well, we can do that really easy. We're just going to go ahead and pull open a device hardpoint once again. We're going to slap that sucker wherever we want the thruster to go. Make sure we got our 4 bolts. Get our regular thruster, put it in place, and then we're going to cable it, and we should be all good to go. That thruster will now work as a reverse thruster. I would just need to cable it up real quick like this. And there we go. Now we have a reverse maneuvering thruster. Again, you could technically put them on the back. There's nothing to tell you that you can't do that. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it. They're not usually worth doing it for that purpose, but it does work. Now, before we move on for this video, I do want to talk about one more thing that can be extremely important with Starbase thrusters. So for this, I'm going to be using a little module I have here, or you can just use the basic spaceship modules that it comes with. So let's say we want to build a triangle thruster, right? These are built the same way the box thrusters are. You put all the little parts in, it's not complicated at all. And then you have these triangle thrusters. These triangle thrusters, this is one individual triangle thruster. Now the great benefit about these things is, let's say I don't want to have 20 hard points on my ship for no good reason. With triangle thrusters, we actually only need to have a single device hardpoint for every single one that is touching each other. So let's just say I wanted to put it on this one for whatever reason. I could do that. And then I would maybe say have some plates. Let's just grab some plates, because remember, we need to keep integrity for our thrusters themselves. And I could slap a plate on however I wanted to. Let's just say right there. And then I could just throw a bunch of bolts in, you know, get it attached so that we have integrity. And we're good. Now we do need to keep in mind, whenever we're putting this device hardpoint on, we do need to actually still bolt it from the back, so that's something to be conscious of. You're going to have to put this on and then attach the thrusters to this. But aside from that, just note that all I would need for this to function is to have one single device hardpoint, as long as all the triangle thrusters are properly stacked and touching one another. This is super duper useful. These things put out plenty of thrust per their space that they take up, so you can save a lot of space by just building these on the rear of your ship. They're also great for maneuvering thrusters on larger ships. So if this is something you're thinking about doing, these are great tools for you to use. If you're building anything more that's going to have more than, say, 4 regular box thrusters, I would highly recommend you start taking into consideration using these stacked triangle thrusters. These are super duper useful. Now, before we move on, I do want to talk about some stuff real quick. This is just kind of some tidbits of information for you. So first off, thrusters as a whole have 3 separate tiers. You have tier 1, 2, and 3. Generally speaking, if you can make a tier 2 thruster, it is 100% better in every possible way than a tier 1 thruster. It uses less propellant, it uses less energy, and all the other knickknacks are just better. You get more speed out of it, everything. It's straight up better. Now, tier 3, that is not the case. Tier 3 thrusters are made for high speed. That means they actually consume more propellant and more energy than, say, a tier 2 thruster would, but in exchange, they get an extra 50,000 thrust per box thruster, and I think it's about 20 or 30,000 per triangle thruster. Just to give you an idea here, a tier 1 box thruster would put out 500,000 thrust, a tier 2 550,000, and a tier 3 would put out 600,000 thrust. Now, if you're anything like me and you are struggling to figure out why your thrusters aren't working, there are a few diagnostic steps we can take. However, a lot of these will be covered in the flight controls video, so do check that out. I'm just going to show you a very quick one you can do to make sure they're working properly. The first thing I would do is always check your hard points. Remember, 4 bolts, no exceptions directly into a beam. otherwise they are not going to work. There is no exception to that rule, so it is very, very important that you always make sure to follow it. You need to put 4 bolts in every single hard point. I cannot tell you how many times I've built a ship like this just to find out I only put 3 bolts in, and that's why the thruster wasn't firing. Now, if you want to see if the thruster is at least electrically hooked up, there's a very easy way to do that. You're going to go into your test mode, you're going to fly over to your thruster, and I won't be seeing it here because I don't have it currently hooked up to a power source, but you could hit U, go over to your data page. We're going to open U one more time to make sure we're on it. And you should see some stuff scrolling by over here on the log page right next to your fields page. If you're seeing that, that means you are hooked up to the electrical grid. It's connected to the system, so that's not your issue. There are more things that thrusters can have issues with, and I will cover all this again in our next video, which is going to talk about flight controls, as well as how to diagnose the issue with thrusters and different issues your ship might be having. So, either way, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm so excited to finish this ship. We're getting close. We just got a few more things we need to do, and we will be done. Thank you. I'm Game Advisor, and if you guys do want to support the channel, consider checking out our membership program down below, and I'll see you next time.